It started with a headline no one expected. Jamie Dornan finally speaks on the drama between his wife and Dakota Johnson. The words hit like a thunderclap across Hollywood. For years, Jamie had remained silent, his composure unshakable despite the endless swirl of rumors surrounding him. Amelia Warner, and Dakota Johnson, the woman with whom he had shared one of the most talked about on-screen connections in modern cinema. But silence, like pressure, has its limits. During a recent interview meant to promote his new film, the host dared to ask what millions had whispered for nearly a decade. "Jamie," she said gently, "people still talk about your chemistry with Dakota Johnson. It's become legendary. How does your wife feel about that kind of attention?" For a moment, he didn't answer. He leaned back, looked down, and let out a quiet breath. "You know," he finally said, "some truths hurt because they're half love, half loyalty." The room went silent. The interviewer didn't push. She didn't need to. That one sentence, poetic, raw, and painfully human, said more than 1,000 denials ever could. Within hours, the quote flooded the internet. Half love, half loyalty. Fans debated its meaning endlessly. Was he confessing unresolved feelings for Dakota? Or admitting the toll those rumors had taken on his marriage? For someone known for his discretion, Jamie had just opened a door he could never fully close again. To understand why that line hit so deeply, one had to go back to the beginning of the bond that started it all. When 50 Shades of Grey began production, Jamie and Dakota were thrust into an emotional and physical intimacy that few actors ever experience. The characters they played, Christian and Anna, were complicated, vulnerable, and dangerously close to reality. "We had to trust each other completely," Jamie once said. "There was no room for distance." That trust became friendship, and that friendship became something else, not romance, but a connection that defied labels. On set, their laughter came easily. Off set, their comfort around each other drew constant attention. Paparazzi shots of them walking together, arms brushing, eyes locked. Every image fed the illusion that something real was happening. And while Dakota brushed it off with her usual dry wit, "We're just good at pretending," she'd said, Amelia wasn't immune to the whispers. Being the wife of a man whose fame exploded because of an erotic love story wasn't easy. "Amelia is incredibly understanding," Jamie told GQ once. "She knows what's real and what's just the job. But even understanding has its limits." Over the years, the tension between truth and perception became unbearable. Amelia faced questions she never asked for. Dakota endured judgment she didn't deserve. Through it all, Jamie chose silence. It was his way of protecting everyone, his wife, his co-star, and the fragile peace between them. But that one recent sentence changed everything. When the clip aired, the internet dissected every syllable. Half love, was he referring to Dakota? Half loyalty, to Amelia? Theories multiplied overnight. Comment sections filled with divided loyalties. Some praised him for honesty. Others accused him of disrespect. And while the noise grew louder, Jamie retreated once more, this time not into silence but reflection. Friends close to him described that week as one of deep introspection. He didn't expect his words to hit that hard, one confidant shared. He was just being honest. For years, he's carried the weight of two worlds, the one where he's a husband and father, and the one where he's forever linked to a woman who helped define his career. Amelia, as always, stayed quiet. She didn't post, didn't comment, didn't deny. Her silence wasn't weakness, it was grace. Those who knew her best said she understood what Jamie meant, even if the world didn't. He wasn't talking about betrayal, one friend said. He was talking about the impossible task of being both an actor and a human being. Meanwhile, Dakota herself was blindsided. Filming in New York when the story broke, she reportedly texted a close friend, "I wish people understood we were just trying to survive that experience together." Yet when asked by reporters later if she'd seen Jamie's quote, she simply smiled and said, "He has a way with words, doesn't he?" Behind that light comment, though, there was a quiet sadness. Because deep down, both of them knew what those words really meant, not a rekindled flame, but an acknowledgement of something that once mattered profoundly and had never been properly laid to rest. That night, Jamie was seen leaving a studio alone, his face calm but his eyes distant. When a photographer asked if he regretted saying what he did, he gave a faint smile and replied, "No. Sometimes the truth just needs to breathe." The truth, however, doesn't always bring peace. By morning, tabloids declared a crisis in the Dornan household. Amelia humiliated by Jamie's confession, one headline read. Yet those close to him insisted otherwise. "There's no crisis," they said. "There's just a man trying to be honest in a world that doesn't know how to handle honesty." And somewhere, between love and loyalty, between past and present, Jamie Dornan found himself standing alone, caught in the middle of two women, two worlds, and one truth he could no longer hide. The storm didn't fade overnight. Jamie's words, half love, half loyalty, echoed across talk shows, tabloids, and social media like a confession no one could unhear. For days, headlines screamed of chaos in the Dornan household, of jealousy and heartbreak, of old feelings resurfacing. But inside Jamie's world, it wasn't scandal that reigned, it was silence. The kind of silence that feels like aftermath. He stayed quiet for a while, letting the noise consume itself. His team advised him to release a statement, something neutral and clean, but he refused. "If I explain it," he told a close friend, "I'll turn it into something it's not." He wasn't running from his words, he was standing by them. Because behind that simple phrase was not infidelity or regret, but truth. The truth that being human sometimes means caring more than you should and staying loyal even when your heart doesn't always make it easy. Amelia, meanwhile, handled everything with her trademark calm. Paparazzi caught glimpses of her walking their children to school, smiling softly, wedding ring still glinting under the morning light. There was no public outburst, no performative denial, just quiet strength. "She's not angry," a family friend told People. "She knows Jamie's heart better than anyone. She's been with him through everything. If he said something that sounded complicated, it's because he is complicated, and she's okay with that." But even grace can ache. Those who knew her said Amelia was hurt not by jealousy, but by fatigue. "She's tired of their story always coming back," one friend confessed. "Every few months, it's Jamie and Dakota again. She wishes people would let it go." Yet she also understood that what Jamie shared with Dakota, those years of filming, that deep creative connection, wasn't something she could or needed to erase. It was part of who he was. As the noise swelled, Dakota finally spoke. During an interview promoting her new project, a journalist asked if she'd heard Jamie's recent comments. Her smile faltered for half a second before she nodded. "Yes," she said softly. "I did. Jamie's a good man, and I'll always respect him. What we went through on those films changed both of us. It was intense, vulnerable, and, honestly, overwhelming at times. But it's in the past, and we both moved forward with love for the people in our lives now." Her words, calm yet heartfelt, diffused some of the tension. Fans flooded social media with praise for her maturity. But beneath the headlines, the truth was quieter and far more complex. Dakota had never been the villain in this story, nor Amelia the victim. They were simply two women who, in different ways, had known the same man deeply, one through fiction, the other through life. Jamie's second public appearance came a week later, at a charity gala in London. Cameras followed him relentlessly, waiting for another quote to ignite the fire again. When one reporter asked bluntly, "Jamie, how are things at home after your interview?" he paused, looked directly into the camera, and said, "They're good. My wife's my best friend. She understands that honesty sometimes sounds messy, but it's still honesty." It wasn't defensive. It wasn't rehearsed. It was a man owning his humanity. The crowd fell silent. A few photographers lowered their cameras. And for the first time since the storm began, it felt like the truth had finally landed in a place of peace. Later that night, someone close to the couple shared that Jamie and Amelia had spent the evening together after the event, just the two of them, away from the noise. They talked for hours, about life, the kids, the pressure of fame. "No fights," the source said. Just understanding. That's their secret. They always find their way back to each other. In Los Angeles, Dakota saw clips from Jamie's appearance. She smiled when she heard him say, "Honesty sounds messy." It was something she understood well. In a quiet cafe, she told a friend, he handled it the only way he knows how, with truth. There was no bitterness in her tone, only warmth. Whatever existed between them had long evolved into respect, maybe even a quiet kind of love that no longer needed definition. As the days passed, the noise dulled. New scandals took over, new faces filled the headlines. But those who followed Jamie's story closely noticed something had changed in him. In his next interview, when asked about his biggest lesson from fame, he smiled gently and said, "That love takes many shapes. Sometimes it's romantic, sometimes it's friendship, sometimes it's just shared understanding. But real love, whatever kind it is, never goes away." It wasn't about Dakota anymore, nor just about Amelia. It was about the strange, fragile beauty of being human under a microscope. That weekend, Jamie and Amelia were seen together at a small restaurant in London. No grand gestures, no performative affection, just laughter, easy conversation, and two hands brushing across the table. The storm had passed, leaving behind a clearer sky. And somewhere across the ocean, Dakota smiled when she saw the photos. She double-tapped the image and whispered to herself, "He deserves peace." Perhaps, in the end, that was what Jamie had been searching for all along. Not forgiveness, not explanations, but peace. The kind that comes when you've lived through the noise, spoken your truth, and chosen love. Not the perfect kind, but the honest kind.